let's have a look at the order once again. Jean Alesi in the lead in the number 27 car. Number 26 car of Christopher Zoechling is in second. Heinz Harald Frentzen third. David Tyrion is in fourth, with Johnny Herbert now down into fifth. Hasher Al Maktoum has made his way up into sixth place, and Gianni Morbidelli, who's just taken an advantage from Damien Piscini, means that he's now in seventh, with Damien down into eighth. Thomas Biaggi with damage to the front of his car in ninth. Marchie Lee in the number 50 speed car is the man to round up the top 10, with Marco Melandri behind him. Hamid Al Fardin, Eric Charles and Vitantonio Luizzi is now down into 14th. However, Luizzi's time, not too bad, 1:46 in comparison to Eric Charles and Hamid Al Fardin, who are currently running slower than he is. You can see crowds standing to watch these cars. You can hear them before you see them. Great big V8 engines, and the roar from them is absolutely phenomenal. So there's our leader, 27 car of Jean Alesi. He's now just under 2.5 seconds ahead of the 26 car of Christopher Zoechling. Jean actually using as much of the width of the track as he can. His lap time still in the 1:42s, 1:42.8. Christopher still quicker than Jean Alesi. His time is a 1:42.6. So just over 15 minutes remaining. You can see in the background the cars on the local highway. I'm sure they're getting a thrill from watching this race as well, even if they're not in the grandstand. It's just, they may not know the drivers who they're actually watching. Veterans of Formula One, veterans of GT racing, veterans of Le Mans, and some newcomers as well. Christopher Zoechling is one of the men to watch. Say he's a man, he just turned 21 yesterday, and I know that it was a great birthday present for him, starting on the front row of the grid today. In fact, he was actually in pole position, having put in a phenomenal final lap in qualifying with just 2 minutes remaining on the clock. So Terrier just over a second in front of the 69 car of Johnny Herbert. David probably slightly more used to the hot conditions here than Johnny is. As we look once again, it's one of the Durango cars. Well, let's find out who it is. It's the 25 car of Hamid Al Fardin. Disappointment for Hamid Al Fardin, who was running in 12th. Well, not only is the tyre disintegrating, but it's actually pulling a lot of the side panel off with it as well. The difference in speed car between last year and this year is that last year there were tin bodies. This year you can see it's fiberglass, and that means that unfortunately when there is a bit of damage it starts to disintegrate. So the tyre actually looks as though it's intact. It may not have been the tyre, but look at the debris on the road surface there, as we see more debris flying away as one of the other drivers runs over it. Now that shouldn't bring out the flags at all. You may see a couple of yellows, however that's about it, and it is just about off the racing line. Perhaps just one or two pieces very close to the racing line, but shouldn't be doing any damage to any of the other cars as long as they stay out of the way in that area. Just under 13 minutes remaining, and here's the battle between the 44 car of David Tyrion and the 69 numbered car of the inaugural speed car season champion, Johnny Herbert. Johnny is still 5 seconds, in fact no, a second and a half adrift of David Tyrion, and it's been very consistent, and it has remained the same gap for the last 3 laps now. Jean Alesi has come round to complete 16 laps with still 12 minutes remaining, so Zoechling still in second, Heinz Harald Frentzen in third, David Tyrion fourth, and Johnny Herbert fifth. So the closest cars we have at the moment are actually a second and a half adrift of one another, which is almost unheard of in the speed car series. Gianni Morbidelli crosses the line. He's now up into 7th with Passini in 8th, Thomas Biaggi in 9th, and Marchi Lee in the background, who is rounding up the top 10. Marco Melandri, 5 seconds adrift from Marchi, is in 11th with Hamad Al Fardin in the pits because of the damage to the front of his car. Eric Charles is still out there as well. He's now in 13th, just ahead of Vitantonio Liuzzi. So damage to 2 of the cars then. The number 4 car of Thomas Biaggi and the number 25 car of, not this weekend, Christopher Zoechling, who normally runs that number. Christopher's out in 2nd place now. He's in the 26 car, and in the 25 car is Hamad Al Fardin, the GP2 Asia Series driver. 11 minutes remaining. I'm sure a lot of these guys starting to suffer from the heat. There really is no getting away from it. The temperatures build the longer that they stay out there, and the cockpit temperatures are much higher than the air and track temperatures. Air temperature earlier on was 35 degrees. The sun is starting to drop a bit from the sky. It will start to get cooler now as the day goes on. Sunset is about 6:30, but it means that there are shadows in places, as you can see, going into the first turn. The rest of the track is still very, very hot with the sun getting lower in the sky. Jean Alesi is the leader, and he has been from the outset, with Christopher Zoechling in 2nd. Christopher having started in pole position but losing out before he even got into the first turn. However, he's managed to maintain that position the whole way through and is now 5.5 seconds ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who's in 3rd. David Tyrion is in 4th, Johnny Herbert's in 5th. Hasher Al Maktoum still out there, he's in 6th. Gianni Morbidelli now up into 7th. Damien Passini 8th, Thomas Biaggi 9th, and Marchi Lee still rounding up the top 10. So here we look at the 44 numbered car of David Tyrion. David, who was 2nd in the championship last year, running with the Union Properties team. And 2nd not by point but by podium finishes, because Johnny Herbert, the winner, and David Tyrion, who came 2nd, were both on joint points. However, Johnny Herbert had more podium finishes than David, meaning that David had to settle for 2nd place. So Passini gaining on Thomas Biaggi. Or the other way around, should we say, Biaggi gaining on Thomas Passini. Passini there in the 13 numbered car. Normally it's a blue car, this weekend it's red and white, but no change for the number 4 PAM Racing team. So we have a look at the front once again. Now, what's happened to Jean Alesi? Because Jean Alesi, although still in the lead, is now under a second. In fact, he's just over half a second in the lead for Christopher Zoechling, who looks as though he's on a quicker lap than Jean Alesi. Now that means that something has happened, because in one lap he's gone from 7 seconds in the lead to just over half a second in the lead. And let's keep an eye on this battle as we see in the front, the 27 car of Jean Alesi. Christopher Zoechling now got Alesi very much in his sights, as we said, half a second between the two of them now. And in fact, on the previous lap, Jean Alesi was just slightly quicker than Christopher Zoechling, just by 1/100th of a second, in fact. And you can tell, without even having the on-board shots, that Jean Alesi is having to think about defending his line at every turn. And Christopher desperately wants to take that place back, the place that he lost before going into the first turn. Very difficult, these rolling starts. You can see the crowds eager and wondering what's happened within one lap for Jean Alesi to now be just under a second ahead of Zoechling. Heinz-Harald Frentzen still in 3rd. David Tyrion quite far adrift of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, in fact just over 5 seconds, but Johnny Herbert closing the gap once again on David Thierry and Sheikh Hasher Al Maktoum in 6. Keep an eye on this battle at the front. 27 car, Jean Alesi, who was 7 seconds ahead of Zoechling, is now only 1 second ahead of Zoechling, but it looks as though he is managing to pull away once again. And this is the young up-and-coming single-seater hopeful, looking at the tail of one of the ex-Formula One drivers, and a very successful driver he was at that, and he's been successful since leaving Formula One as well, doing the GP Masters. Now he's in the Speed Car Series. He missed out in the very last race of the inaugural season on the championship. He was very upset about that. He's been determined this season to keep out in front. He desperately wants to win the championship, but he's got to watch out for these young guns in the 26 car. Christopher Zoechling desperately trying to gain as much momentum as possible as they come round to that final turn once again. Just over 5.5 minutes remaining. It looks as though the 27 car of Jean Alesi has the advantage on that final turn. However, he's got more power in the straight line. Can Christopher get a toe off of the 27 car of Jean Alesi? You can't even see Christopher. He's tucked in very close behind Alesi in the 27 car. It's now just over half a second, so Christopher pulling the gap back. He's taking a slightly different line as they come towards the S's. That sharp left and right-hander down towards the back straight. 5 minutes remaining. Jean in the lead, Christopher Zoechling in second, in fact on his tail. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in third, David Thierry in fourth, Johnny Herbert in fifth, Hasher Al Maktoum sixth, in seventh is Gianni Morbidelli, eighth is Damien Passini, in ninth now is Thomas Biaggi, Marchi Lee just coming in behind him, Marco Melandri, Eric Charles, Liu Tzi are all still out there. Unfortunately, Hamid Al Farden had to go in to check out the damage to the front of his car, and that means that he's dropped down into 14th. 4.5 minutes remaining. It's about 3 to 4 laps. So you can see the struggle trying to get these heavy cars around those sharp turns. Christopher being the younger of these two drivers, and also a lot taller than Jean Alesi, which causes him a few problems getting in and out of the car, and it's not an ideal seating position for him once he's in. But this is almost a home circuit for him, having been brought up partly in Dubai and karting in Dubai as well. So Jean Alesi is now 0.8 of a second in front of Zoechling. It looks as though he's struggling a bit with the back end of his car there. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in third, David Thierry in fourth, Johnny Herbert in fifth. So Zoechling desperately trying to claw back those hundreds and even thousandths of a second. Seems to be quicker in certain sections than others. In fact, sector 2, he's pulling back the time, and unfortunately, looks as though Jean Alesi may be quicker coming out of the turns than going into them. So here we see, once again, late braking from Zoechling. You can see him fighting to stop the back end from stepping out. This is a difficult section. It doesn't look like it on your TV screens, but believe me, it's not somewhere that you want to lose control. There's a lot of downforce at the beginning of that straight, but not in the middle, and then you have to brake hard, which really unsettles the car going through this left-hander, which is a lot of cross camber as well. Now they head towards the final turn. Still Jean Alesi in the lead, having completed 21 laps, about to complete 22, with just over 2 minutes remaining. And let's have a look at the gap after this. Well, it was 0.8 of a second. It's now 0.7 of a second. So once again, Christopher Zoechling trying to battle his way up to that first place position, but he's got to get onto the tail of the 27 car first before he can think about doing anything. And I'm sure that Jean Alesi will try and defend his line as well as he possibly can. Only another 2 laps remaining after, well, another 1 lap after this one. So there's just over a minute and a half left on the clock. The battle at the moment that we're looking at is Christopher Zoechling just behind Jean Alesi. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, as you can see in the background, with David Tyrion just behind him. And there's a big gap now. In fact, so much of a gap that there's 3 laps difference in the front runners to the tail enders. So Christopher heavy on the brakes through the hairpin, past the management building, coming into the bowl once again. The last lap time, Christopher was quicker than Jean Alesi. Jean's time a 1:43.202, Christopher's a 1:43.088, which means Christopher again being the quickest man on the circuit. So it looks as though they'll cross the line to continue for a final lap with 30 seconds remaining on the clock. So as we can see, Jean Alesi in the lead. Christopher Zoechling now only has 11 turns to try and get that position back from Jean Alesi, who stole it from him before the first turn on the first lap. And will there be any problems for Jean Alesi? Well, he tends to keep his cool, but there's back markers coming into play. Now, is that Eric Charles? Back, it is the, in fact, no, it's the 25 car of Hamid Al Farden. So Hamid making sure that he's clear of the 2 front runners, Jean Alesi and Christopher Zoechling. That's not going to have helped Christopher in any way whatsoever. 6 turns remaining, and we are on the final lap, as we said, with Jean Alesi in the lead, Christopher Zoechling in second. You can see Hamid Al Farden, who's not in third, but he's just behind them. Hamid actually down into 13th, having come upon a problem just a few laps ago, as has Liuzzi, almost a similar problem, and there is damage to the front of Thomas Biaggi's car as well. But at the moment, as they come round to the last few turns, it is Jean Alesi just half a second ahead of Christopher Zoechling, with Heinz-Harald Frentzen now nearly 8 seconds adrift of the front runners, and it's a battle to the very end. They come towards the final turn. Is Christopher going to have a look down the inside? Well, he's not close enough to do it, but I'm sure he's going to be happy with second place as they go towards the checkered flag, and it is once again Jean Alesi taking the checkered flag from Christopher Zoechling in second. Heinz-Harald Frentzen coming through in the background for third, with a David Tyrion very much on his tail to take fourth. And that has been an absolutely brilliant race for the 21-year-old who turned 21 just yesterday, as he sneakily takes that position after the checkered flag. Jean Alesi takes the checkered flag and is today's race winner, with Christopher Zoechling in second, Heinz-Harald Frentzen third, David Tyrion in fourth, desperately trying also to take a position from Heinz-Harald Frentzen on the last lap. Johnny Herbert fifth. In sixth, Hasher Al Maktoum seventh, Gianni Morbidelli, and Damien Passini rounds up the top 8, meaning that Passini will start from pole position tomorrow, with Gianni Morbidelli beside him, and then on the second row of the grid, a chance for Hasher Al Maktoum, who will be starting beside Johnny Herbert. But for today's race, as we said, the 27 car of Jean Alesi takes the checkered flag just in front of Christopher Zoechling in the 26 numbered speed car. Watch Jean Alesi making his way on his cool down lap back towards the pits, waving to the fans that are out there. Well, Heinz-Harald Frentzen will also be happy. He'll be on the podium. David Tyrion missing out by just half a second, in fact, so pushing very hard in the last few laps of that race. In fact, David not far off the pace from Jean Alesi and Christopher Zoechling, with Heinz-Harald Frentzen, in fact, 3 seconds slower than the front runners, obviously knowing that not to push it in the last lap, because he knew that he had a clear gap from David. And as we said, David desperately trying to get that position in the last few turns. So we watch the cars making their way now into the pit lane. Let's see how hot these drivers are. I don't mean hot as in their looks, I mean hot as in the temperature. 27, Jean Alesi stopping in front of the #1 banner. Christopher Zoechling in second, and I bet you it takes Christopher longer to get out of the car because he's about 6'5". So the 27 overalls, watch your step there. It is Jean Alesi on the top of his car. Well, as they make their way towards the podium, we'll just remind you once again, Jean Alesi taking the checkered flag with Christopher Zoechling in second, Heinz-Harald Frentzen in third, David Tyrion in fourth, Johnny Herbert in fifth, Hasher Al Maktoum, the local hero, in sixth, Gianni Morbidelli in seventh, Damien Passini in eighth, Thomas Biaggi was in ninth, with Marco Melandri rounding up the top 10. Just behind him, Marchi Lee in 11th, as we see Jean just struggling a little with the heat. As we said, 35 degrees today. So not a great race for the number 20 car of Vitantonio Liuzzi, who unfortunately had to come in with what looked like a puncture, or possibly even some suspension, but more likely to be a puncture. And Hamid Al Farden, his first time out in the speed car this weekend, with Eric Charles in 14th place. So the drivers just getting their breath back. Jean Alesi speaking to a couple of the officials.
Drivers are ready, just about. Once Christopher has down another bottle of water, and then we should be ready for.
So you can see the podium ready and the trophies in the background. So Christopher making sure that his overalls are back on, so we can see all of his nice sponsors. We haven't yet seen Heinz-Harald Frentzen, in fact. Here he is, as I say. Heinz-Harald Frentzen sitting down on the right-hand side of our screen. The fortunate thing is that Christopher will be in the shade. Unfortunately, Jean Alesi is the man who's got to stand in the sun once more, as we see Heinz-Harald Frentzen making his way onto the podium and the third step. And in second, Christopher Zoechling, who's still taller than the man on the top step. It is Jean Alesi. So Jean Alesi standing in the sun. And let's pray silence for the national anthem of the winning driver. So they pop their caps on. And there we see Heinz-Harald Frentzen being presented with a trophy. The chairman of Dubai Autodrome presenting the trophy to Christopher Zoechling in second. And look at the smile on that young man's face. And now we just wait for the trophy for the man on the top step being presented by the CEO of Union Properties, Mr. Salman Azam. So, top step of the podium, and smiles once again from Jean Alesi. So they get together to take the photo, and we remind you once again, Jean Alesi in the middle on the top step, with Christopher Zoechling in second and Heinz-Harald Frentzen in third. A great start to the race weekend, and of course more to come tomorrow afternoon as well. And the first pole position for Damien Passini in his number 13 speed car. Gianni Morbidelli will be beside him on the front row of the grid. As speed car returns once again to the United Arab Emirates. So, as we said, Jean Alesi was our race winner for today, with Christopher Zoechling in second, Heinz-Harald Frentzen third, David Thierrien fourth, fifth, Johnny Herbert, Hasher Al Maktoum just behind him, Gianni Morbidelli in 7th, and Damien Passini in 8th, meaning that he will be on the front row of the grid tomorrow as the top 8 are reversed. Well, that's it for today. I am certainly looking forward to race 2, and we hope you join us again tomorrow afternoon for more fun in the sun here at Dubai Autodrome.
The red lights extinguished, we go green and let's go racing. It is the Speed Car Championship Series. It is music to petrolheads' ears. Those mammoth V8 roaring through. This is brilliant stuff from these mammoth V8 stock cars, Speed Car Racing.